Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to Memories of Mars, everything you need to know. The game has just launched on Xbox and PlayStation for the first time, and it's been on PC for nearly 2 years. Developed by Limbic Entertainment, published by 505 Games, this open world survival game is now ready to go. 1.0 status, although it will be supported in the future if you go by what the devs have said in Discord. As ever, if you want the best information on survival games, make sure you subscribe and you've got the notification bell rung, and make sure you've liked this video if you want more to do with Memories of Mars. So what is Memories of Mars? Well, it is an open world survival game, very much in the same sort of vein as games like Rust, possibly Art Survival or Conan Exiles, in that you've got full base building, you've got PvP elements, and you've got a big open world with lots of points of interest to go and explore. The map is 16 kilometers squared, obviously on the red dusty planet itself, with over 120 points of interest. These are protected by a variety of different AI robots and mechs, which are pretty much the main enemy types. There's various different ones as well, from walkers that will come and chase you like dogs, to ones that have got bazookas on their backs, and giant massive boss mechs that end up being the end game challenges. You'll be fighting off these robots with up to 32 players on a server. There currently is no single player, it's an online only game. You can rent your own private servers from various different retailers, and even on console I've seen it pop up already. There's currently only one server type. Now during early access they tinkered around with a fully PvP environment where you could raid people online, offline at any point and given time, and they seem to have nerfed that and dialed it back down. This may please a lot of people. I feel like this is a bit of a misstep for console, and definitely think there's a big market on console desperately waiting for Rust to come out, and this would have been something very similar, or something to maybe keep them going until that game did appear. But don't worry, you toxic PvP killers out there, there are some PvP elements in this game that might make it worthwhile, and for sure if you're really sick of them toxic environments with games like Ark and Rust where you can get raided at all times, then maybe Memories of Mars will give you a bit of a nicer alternative. We're going to cover how the PvP works a bit later on, but let's go over some more of the basics. The lore of the story is that colonists basically were abandoning the planet, or they got scared off by the AI that turned on them. You are a bunch of clones that have come back to life and are trying to reclaim the planet through the dusty remains of the colonies before you. You're going to need oxygen, you're going to need sustenance. These are two of the main resources that you're going to constantly be getting, but it's not necessarily as painful as some other games. When you get your oxygen from either the oxygen tanks or lines that litter all over the map, or whether or not it's little capsules that can replenish you at any time, it doesn't feel as punishing as some other games that make you require food and water. Then you've got your consumables that come in a variety of different space pastes that will give you various different buffs, and it's important to keep your food up to remain your energy levels. Add to that a bunch of healing items that can make sure you don't keep bleeding if your glass starts to crack, so you've taken damage, as well as adrenaline shots that give you lots of different style buffs. So after the basics that will keep you alive, you're going to need to start harvesting flops. Flops are the currency that pretty much unlock all the blueprints and are going to get you progression through the game. You get flops in a variety of different ways. You earn flops through harvesting resources like iron nodes and picking up nitro. You can also get flops from killing other players in the PvP zones, as well as AI creatures, and you'll find flops just by foraging throughout the many locations, bases and facilities in the game. Flops are also needed to maintain your base so that you can keep it as long as you want. If you're going to be playing for a good few weeks, you need to put a lot of flops into your base to make it so it doesn't despawn or become open for anyone to scavenge. This is a pretty familiar concept for anyone that's played any type of PvP game, or in fact even PvE. You need to upkeep it with resources, but in this case in Memories of Mars it's just the flops that you need to upkeep it with, and you don't need too many. It's not that grindy. You just need a good 1,000 or so flops and you'll be able to run your base for a week or so on end. So don't worry, nothing will despawn as long as you're willing to pay the game a little bit, and if you are going to be going away for a good few weeks, you can just replenish your base as much as you want so that your base remains there even if you haven't logged on for a while. One of the first things you're going to need to do is start crafting, and you've got a 3D printer that will do the job until you build a base and you can have it as part of it. But till then, the mobile version will help you craft any of the items you've unlocked with your blueprints. And that's what your flops are going to be for. You can buy as many different types of blueprints as you want, and there is a progression path though that you have to go through to unlock some of the more end game stuff. Once you've done this though, you'll be able to craft it as long as you've got the resources and the typical sort of stuff. You need to refine raw iron and nitro until there's something else like aluminium or iron ingots, and then you can go ahead and start building your bases or making different types of armor and weapons. You will find loot in and around the world while exploring, and there's plenty of points of interest, ancient colonization homes where you're going to have to go through, as well as facilities that may offer endgame loot, and particularly armor pieces you'll find in abundance if you take a good look. There is also a big choice in weapons, depending on what type of playstyle you are. Shotguns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, and high-powered pistols. There is a huge variety in terms of weapons, and particularly ammo types as well. Some of these are going to need a variety of different resources in combination, and some might be a bit harder to get hold of, but they do offer different ways to play the game. Things like full metal jacket ammo, or maybe different slugs for your shotgun. There's a variety of different ammo types that you can also craft and obviously learn how to make throughout the game. Now it does get a bit more complicated. There are some resources you're going to have to refine, and some of these resources you can only get in high dangerous positions or places, and so that means taking on some of the more advanced creatures. This unlocks the high-end blueprints and gear, and so eventually you'll be hopefully getting tech boosters that can mean you can almost fly throughout the map, as well as a variety of other different options. The ability to jump really powerfully across and glide. These are all end game items that you can require, but there's lots of different variations of armor sets and pieces that you can have. Maybe you want to be able to carry more items. You can craft chest pieces that will give you a much higher weight limit. You can also use flops not just to buy blueprints, but also to give you additional bonuses and buffs for your character. Whether or not it's going to be an extra yield when you gather and harvest items, or you get more out of the consumables and oxygen that you use. There's various different ones that you'll go through while unlocking through the skill tree. On top of that, you've also got something called survival points. A big shout out to the Memories of Mars Discord that gave me a bunch of information that I was kind of lacking. As you progress through the skill tree unlocking different blueprints, you'll also earn these survival points, and these survival points can basically unlock better perks for you. So if you want to increase your weight, you want to increase your damage output, again it's another way that you can basically overhype your character. A lot of the base building is pretty functional in that a lot of the crafting stations will take up wall space, so you'll be able to convert a wall into the crafting station you need, and there's plenty of big boxy bases I've seen while playing around on PC to get you some of this footage ahead of the launch. I really like the build system as it's a blueprint system. You plonk your blueprint down and then anyone in your tribe can go and contribute to that blueprint, so you can build stuff really quick and easy. There obviously is clans. I managed to hop onto the Xbox version of the game and I found that you have got voice chat, but I couldn't find a way to type in chat, and that probably is going to be the theme, that you can only speak to people via either talking in-game proximity or by using the series of emotes. There is an emote dial that you can use on console. So that's pretty much the basics of what Memory of Mars is, a base building survival game. You're going to be out there gathering resources, fighting against robots and various different small creatures, and then occasionally taking on players in PvP. How does the PvP work then if it's changed and it's no longer fully open world? Well, there are flop events. These events will appear on the map randomly at different times, and you will have to go towards them. They'll offer you a big circle so you'll know exactly that you're in a flop event zone, and you have to basically go into the A, B, C or D areas and activate a flop gathering device. You'll gather flops, and as long as you stay in and around that whole zone, you can get lots of flops this way, earning up to 2,000 or more. However, if there are other players and they kill you, they can actually take the flops that you've been gathering. Normally when you die you don't lose your flops, no one's going to be able to take them from you, but only in these events when you're trying to gather them, if you are killed I do believe other players can take them from you. So if you don't like PvP, you can avoid these situations just by never going towards one of these events. If you do want a bit of PvP, you may be thinking this might not be enough. Well, there are special PvP zones. These are only really activated once you've done a few missions and you'll come across special areas, particularly in the snowy regions of the map. So once you get to a certain point, you've covered all the missions, it's kind of gating it off so that noobs don't necessarily get owned all the time. I haven't fully explored all of the mechanics of these permanent PvP zones as I've not got to that stage yet myself, so I will be doing a more in-depth guide on PvP with Memories of Mars, because that's kind of where I really want to play the game with much more PvP focus. However, if you rent your own server, it does look like you've got the options to make it customized however you want. If you're fully PvP, you want base buildings to be attackable, you can do that on your private server. If you want it completely PvE, you don't want the flop events where players can attack each other, then you can also turn that off as well according to developers. So once again, big shout out to them answering my questions in Discord. Memories of Mars is trying to solve the problem with lots of these types of games. The toxicity that arises and the gameplay broken mechanics of raiding people when in the online. That's no fun for me. I'd rather try and raid people when they're in and around and have gunfights with them, and of course maybe go and try and raid their bases. So this could be a good alternative, having lots of PvP zones where you attack each other, lots of events where you can come across each other and get decent rewards for killing other players. I think that's a good balance. Let's hope they have got more PvP zones coming in the future, or they emphasise some of this as well a little bit. I'm not too sad about the fact you can't offline base raid, but it does make a large component of the game pretty redundant. You can upgrade your bases with various different materials that will give you much more protection against certain things, but nothing ever is going to attack them. So unless you've built somewhere in a PvP zone, you don't really necessarily have to worry about getting the best upgradable base pieces. Again, I'm pretty low level and there have been a bunch of changes leading up to the 4.10 release, so maybe there is a time when your bases will be needed to be upgraded, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't really offer anything substantial at the moment. The end game at the moment is taking on these big giant mechs and unlocking some of the more advanced materials or advanced blueprints so you can craft really high-end armor and weapons. Other than that, in the future the plans were to add vehicles at one point, and that may be something they revisit, although I wouldn't add that just yet. It may be some months away and only dependent if this game is successful before they start adding some maybe lunar buggies and stuff like that to get around to. Until then, some other things you might want to know about is the customization. You can colour and customise your suits, you can get skins for various different pieces of crafting and your bases as well, all unlockable through various machines in the world too. So there's a lot of customization for PvE players that just want to make some fantastic super retro Mars bases, as well as make sure you've got your right shade of pink. Add to that a bunch of achievements and trophies for them that really like to be completionists, and it does look like Memories of Mars has got enough to hold people over until hopefully they start updating the game a little bit more with some either various different game modes or increasing the range of PvP options. As I said, personally can see there being a market for making it much more like Rust and going back to the all open PvP area, but we'll have to wait and see. I've said that about other games in the past, and definitely the crowd that wanted to play it were definitely PvEers. So let me know in the comment section, do you envision you playing this as a bloodthirsty person running around the planet attacking players at any opportunity you can, or are you quite happy with the PvP elements being segregated? Memories of Mars is around £15 or $20 depending on what currency you're in, and look forward to me having my own server where I will definitely probably have much more PvP elements to it. Join my Discord to let you guys know when that's going to go live and expect to see some content on that. I'm enjoying Memories of Mars immensely. I think there's a good future here if they just get enough eyes on the game. It definitely gone under the radar, and 505, their publisher, have been a little bit lackluster in promoting this game, and I don't know why. I really do believe that on console this game could work as long as they support it and make sure the devs can get enough time and investment to get more content in there. So I'll give you a proper review once I've got some more game time under my belt, and right now though on Xbox it's looking pretty good. The frame rates, the game, it just looks pretty nice. There's nothing horrendous, there's no bad gameplay glitches so far. I've spent about an hour and a half playing it this morning. I've obviously spent a bit more time on PC, and it has been revisited a few times by me since I first covered it when it was coming out on Steam nearly 2 years ago, and throughout that period it just hasn't had enough players to make it a huge worthwhile experience. People complaining often that the servers are pretty empty. So as long as the servers are full, I think there's going to be plenty of moments where you'll group up with people, take on the mechs and share the wealth, and then PvP events should hopefully keep people interested. Let me know what you're thinking about Memories of Mars. As ever, for the best in survival games news, info and guides, make sure you're locked on, and I'll see you rat bags on Mars.